This is an unbelievable turnout. Thank you, Tacoma. Whoa. And let me begin by introducing you to the next First Lady of the United States, Jane Sanders.
Thanks for the warm welcome, Tacoma. It's great to be here with you.
Let me, again, this is just an unbelievable turnout. Let me thank all those who have spoken: David Bean, Deborah Parker, Sacred Family Canoe Group, Sharma Savant, Teresa Mosqueda, Jamie Margolin. Let me thank Tim Robbins for being here tonight. And let me thank someone all of you should be extremely proud of, one of the outstanding members of the United States Congress, your Congresswoman, Pramila Jayapal. We are here tonight to focus on two enormously consequential issues. First, together, we are going to defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. Donald Trump is a pathological liar. And no matter what your political point of view may be, we cannot have a liar, we cannot have a president who is running a corrupt administration. We cannot have a president who is undermining American democracy and our Constitution. We cannot continue having a president who is a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, and a religious bigot. And those are his finest qualities. But it's not just his character, or more likely his lack of character. It is that he is a fraud. And by the time this campaign is over, the American people will understand he is a sellout to the working families of this country that he promised to defend. During his campaign, %, over 10 years. Donald Trump said in his campaign, he said, I am a different type of Republican. I am not going to cut Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. He lied. His budget called for massive cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Now, Donald Trump wants us to hate the undocumented. We're supposed to hate the undocumented, but when he was a private businessman, he loved the undocumented, hired hundreds of them in his resorts so he could exploit them and take advantage of them. Donald Trump says that corporations should not outsource jobs. But as a private businessman, he had his factories established in India, China, Turkey, Bangladesh, and Mexico, paying workers there starvation wages. So, Mr. Trump, you are a liar, you are a fraud, and the American people are not going to reelect you. And the reason that the American people are not going to reelect Trump is they understand that there are fundamental problems in this country that must be addressed. We will not accept the massive levels of income and wealth inequality that exist today. We will not accept an economy in which 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of our society, where the top 1% own more wealth than the bottom 92%, where 500,000 Americans will be homeless tonight at the same time as massive tax breaks have been given to billionaires. We're not going to accept an economy where over the last 45 years, real inflation accounted for wages for working people has not gone up 1 penny. We're not going to accept an economy where 45 million people are struggling with student debt. We're not going to accept an economy where many millions of our people cannot afford health care and where our people are being ripped off every day by the greed and corruption of the pharmaceutical industry. And there is a reason why the very, very rich get much richer while the working class of this country struggles. There is a reason why Congress gives tax breaks to billionaires while 500,000 people sleep out on the street. And that is, we have a corrupt political system which enables billionaires to buy elections. So today we say to those billionaires who are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to support candidates who represent the rich and the powerful, today we say to Mayor Bloomberg, we are a democracy, not an oligarchy. You're not going to buy this election. And we say to Mr. Bloomberg, you are certainly not going to win when you have a record in New York City that included racist policies like stop and frisk, which caused communities of color, African Americans and Latinos to live in fear and humiliation in New York City. You're not going to win an election when you opposed raising the minimum wage. You know, people who have billions of dollars should not be opposed to raising the minimum wage above $7.25 an hour. You're not going to win an election when you called for cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. The American people, working families all over this country, want an economy and a government that works for all of us, not just a handful of billionaires. And we're going to win this nomination. We're going to win here in Washington. And we are going to defeat Trump because we have the strongest grassroots movement in the modern history of the United States of America. We may not have billions of dollars to throw around, but we have hundreds of thousands of people in every state in this country knocking on doors. We won the popular vote in Iowa because in freezing cold weather, people were out knocking on doors. And we won the primary in New Hampshire because we knocked on hundreds of thousands of doors in that state. And that's why we're going to win here in Washington and why we're going to win all over this country. Now, we may not be able to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on TV ads, but I am extraordinarily proud that our campaign has raised more campaign contributions from more Americans than any campaign in the history of this country. And the average contribution is $18.50. This campaign is a campaign of the working class and for the working class. And we're going to win this election because we have an agenda. Thank you. And we are going to win this election because we have an agenda that speaks to the needs of working families from Vermont to Washington. This is an agenda that says that in America, if you work 40 hours a week, you're not going to live in poverty. We're going to raise that federal minimum wage to $15 an hour in every state in the country. Women are not going to make 80 cents on the dollar. They're going to make the whole damn dollar. And at a time when millions of workers want to join unions, we're going to make it easier for workers to join unions. We're going to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure and create millions of good-paying union jobs. And we're going to put people to work building 10 million units of low-income and affordable housing. This is America We will not continue having 500,000 people sleeping out on the streets. And we are going to profoundly change national priorities in this country. Instead of investing hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks and subsidies for the fossil fuel industry, we're going to invest in education. And that means universal, high-quality, affordable child care for every working family in this country. It means tripling funding for low-income Title I schools so that all kids in America get the education they deserve, regardless of the zip code in which they live. And because we believe in education, we believe in those people who educate our kids, the teachers of America. Our goal is to make sure that no teacher in America earns less than $60,000 a year. And because we believe in education, we believe that all of our people, regardless of their income, are entitled to a higher education, college or trade schools. And that means we will make public colleges and universities tuition-free. Now, 12 years ago, as you'll recall, against my vote, Congress voted to bail out the crooks on Wall Street who nearly destroyed our economy. 2 years ago, against my vote, Congress decided to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to top 1% and large profitable corporations. Well, if Congress could bail out the crooks on Wall Street and give tax breaks to billionaires, Congress can cancel all student debt in this country. And when we talk about an agenda for working families, that means that we are going to end the international disgrace of our great country being the only major nation on earth that does not guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child. Health care is a human right, not a privilege. It is totally insane that today we are spending twice as much money per person on health care as is Canada or any other major country on earth. We are spending $11,000 for every man, woman, and child. The average working family in America spending $12,000, 20% of that family's income. But despite all of that huge expenditure, we have 87 million people, including many here tonight, who are uninsured or underinsured. We have, and this is a total disgrace, we have 30,000 people each year who die because they don't get to a doctor on time. We continue to be ripped off by the greed and corruption of the pharmaceutical industry, which in some cases is charging us 10 times more for the same prescription drugs sold in other countries. And if you want to hear a cruel and dysfunctional system, understand that every year some 500,000 Americans go bankrupt because of medical debt they cannot pay. What kind of system do we have when people who are struggling with cancer or heart disease or Alzheimer's have got to worry about financial ruin because of the outrageous cost of health care in this country? And that is why together, whether the insurance companies like it or not, whether the drug companies like it or not, we are going to pass a Medicare for all single-payer system. And what that system means is there are no more premiums for you or your employer. No more co-payments when you walk into a doctor's office. And we end the insane concept of deductibles. No out-of-pocket expenses. And because we're going to lower drug prices in this country substantially under our proposal, nobody pays more than $200 a year for the prescription drugs they need. And under Medicare for all, we cover dental care, hearing aids, eyeglasses, and home health care so people are not forced into nursing homes. And when we pass a Medicare for all system, we will save hundreds of billions of dollars a year and make certain that the average American pays substantially less than he or she is paying today. Now, our campaign, unlike many others, has the courage to look at the difficult challenges facing our country. Now, we got a president who thinks that climate change is a hoax. Well, I myself believe that Donald Trump is a hoax. And under our administration, we will listen to the scientists, not right-wing extremists. And all of you know what the scientists are telling us today. What they are telling us, and this is scary stuff, is that the crisis of climate change is worse than they had previously anticipated. They are telling us that the polar ice caps melting at a faster rate, oceans warming, drought more severe, extreme weather disturbances more severe. They are telling us that by the end of the century, there may be hundreds of millions of climate refugees who can no longer live in their communities because there is no water to drink or land to grow their crops. What we intend to do, and I'm very proud that we have introduced the most sweeping and comprehensive climate change proposal ever introduced by a candidate for federal office. And that proposal, based on the principles of the Green New Deal, that proposal tells the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. And that means that we will create up to 20 million good-paying union jobs as we transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. Climate change is one of the great moral issues facing the entire planet. And to my mind, we have a moral responsibility, and I speak as the grandfather of 7 beautiful kids. We have the moral responsibility to make sure that future generations can live on a planet that is healthy and habitable. And I will tell you this, all of you know that climate change is not just an American issue. It's a global issue. And my job as president will be to tell the people in China and in Russia and in India and in Pakistan and Brazil and in Africa, all over the world, that instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, we should pool our resources and fight our common enemy, which is climate change. And when we talk about a government that works for all and not the few, that means that we're going to bring about fundamental reform to a broken and racist criminal justice system. Together, we are going to end the absurdity of the United States having more people in jail than any other country on earth. We are going to invest in our young people in jobs and education, not more jails and incarceration. We're going to end private prisons and detention centers. We're going to end the so-called war on drugs and legalize marijuana in every state in this country. Here's a question. I got a question for you all. How many people here know somebody who was arrested for possession of marijuana? We're going to expunge the records of those who are arrested for possession of marijuana. And when we talk about broken and racist systems, we're going to bring fundamental reform to our immigration system. We are going to end the demonization of the undocumented. On day one, through executive order, we're going to rescind all of Trump's racist immigration executive orders. On day one, we're going to restore the legal status of the 1.8 million young people eligible for the DACA program. Under our administration, federal agents will never be snatching babies from the arms of their mothers. And we will not be throwing children into cages. And together we will do what the American people want, and that is comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. Every American, no matter what his or her political views are horrified and disgusted by the gun violence that we see in America. And let me just simply say this to you. Our gun policy will be written by the American people, not the NRA. And that means universal background checks, ending the gun show loophole, and doing what the American people want is ending the sale and distribution of assault weapons in this country. Now, as the United States Senator, I listen to a lot of speeches on the floor. And I hear speeches from conservative Republicans who tell us that they believe in small government, they believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people. And I say to those hypocrites that if you believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people, understand that it is women who must control their own bodies, not the government. And my promise to you is I will never nominate anybody to the Supreme Court or the federal bench who is not 100% pro Roe v. Wade. We will codify Roe v. Wade, put it into law, and we will significantly expand funding for Planned Parenthood. Bottom line is women control their own bodies, not the government. So here we are today in the midst of the most consequential election in the modern history of America. You got my vote. As a United States Senator, I fully appreciate the power of the corporate elites and the 1%. They have endless, and I mean endless amounts of money. They own, to a large degree, the media. They have tremendous control over our economy. Okay? They are very, very powerful. But at the end of the day, we are the 99%. And the last that I heard, you know, I don't have a PhD in math, but the last that I heard, 99% is a hell of a larger number than 1%. So what that means, this is what that means. That means that if we stand together and not allow Trump and his friends to divide us up based on the color of our skin or where we were born or our sexual orientation or our religion, if we stand together, ain't nothing gonna stop us. Now, Trump and the Republican Party are getting nervous. Wall Street is getting nervous. The insurance industry is getting nervous. The drug companies are getting nervous. The fossil fuel industry is getting nervous. The military-industrial complex is getting nervous. And the prison industrial complex is getting nervous. And the Democratic establishment is getting nervous. And you know what? You know what? They should be getting nervous. And they're trying to figure out all kinds of ways, how do we stop Bernie and the movement? But they are not going to succeed. Because workers all over this country are demanding decent jobs and decent wages. Young people want a college education without going into debt. The overwhelming majority of Americans understand that health care is a human right, not a privilege. All over the world, people know we have got to take on the fossil fuel industry and save the planet for climate change. So that is why the establishment is getting nervous. Let us, right now in this enormously important moment, do everything that we can on Election Day here in Washington, not only to vote, but to bring out our friends, our neighbors, our co-workers. Let us have here in Washington the largest voter turnout in the history of the Washington primary. Let us go forward together. Let's win here in Washington. Let's win the Democratic nomination. Let's defeat Donald Trump. And let us transform America and create a government that works for all, not just the few. Thank you.